All right, well, today's going to be a fast-paced, fast-moving webinar. We're going to jump nose right in. We're just going to nosedive into the content. So if you've been doing anything and not paying attention, just kind of waiting for the webinar, I would suggest that you very, very quickly, like in the next 30 seconds, wind it down, wrap it up, and pay attention. This webinar today is not slide intensive. I've actually only got about 2 slides per point that we're going to be making. Otherwise than that, it's just going to be Gary and I discussing the tactic or the strategy that you can use right now in your database with your leads or your prospects to either get them to come back to get dead ones to come back to life, or to engage a database that's just been unresponsive, which from a lot of the surveys that I've been sending out to you guys and some of the conversations we've been having and all the responses you guys have been giving, one of the biggest frustrations that's shared across the board is just, hey, I've bought 50 leads, 100 leads, 300 leads, whatever it may be, and I'm not getting any engagement with them. I'm not getting any traction. Nobody's responding. I've been sending them property drifts. I've been letting them know that I can be of help, of service. Here's what I can do. Here's what I offer. Give me a call. Give me an email, right? And just on and on and on. You guys know the drill. You run the gamut every day. So anyways, what do you do? What do you do in a situation like that, right? What do you do when faced with those kinds of situations? And we're going to go through a few specific strategies that we have found work really, really well for in those kind of situations. At least the best ones that we've been able to find. And of course, if you can find some, if you've got things that have worked for you as well, would love for you to shoot us an email with those afterwards, and we'll include them perhaps in a future webinar. Today's playbook, we're going to go for about 60 minutes. The things that we're going to cover is the 3-second rule of sending emails to prospects, the Lazarus lead method for bringing back dead leads, the chess master method for engaging leads, the cookie crumb funnel for getting prospects to come to you, racking the shotgun for blasting expensive for blasting out to your expensive but dead leads, right? So that's what I talked about a little bit earlier, when maybe you've spent $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 on buying a bunch of leads and you're not getting anything out of them. You got to get something out of them, right? So this is the strategy that you use as kind of a almost last resort. And then the Goldilocks principle, which is for getting real buyers and sellers to identify themselves. Real quickly before we nose right into the meat and potatoes of it, Gary, I'd love for you to share your thoughts on the difference between lead nurturing and conversion versus sales. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot on that today. That's going to be a common theme throughout the webinar today, because one of the big issues with why a lot of agents and salespeople in general don't get engagement with their leads is because they don't understand the difference, or they're not approaching it differently when they're not approaching lead conversion and lead nurturing different from sales, right? A lead is somebody who's still out in the dark in the internet. Maybe they gave you their name and their email address, versus like you sell to somebody who you're actually in the car with or looking at homes with. But oftentimes agents start treating people who just gave them their name and their email address as if they were already in the car touring, looking at homes with them, or in a listing appointment. I'd love for you to talk for a minute on kind of what you see as the differences between lead nurturing versus actually selling.
Well, as far as the primary difference is just the levels of engagement. I mean, sales obviously is that one-to-one interaction that should actually be moved closer and closer to the front of the line. Most of these interactions that agents are engaging in, these email sequences and drip campaigns and the variety of different ways they converge on prospects, has become, they treat all the leads virtually identical. They've sort of
Right.
commoditized the point of contact and don't differentiate and customize what they're communicating to them. But the real key to warming up the sequence to begin with is to have more meaningful engagement at the front of the line. See, the lead funnel has been, for years, has been designed to squeeze people into a funnel and nurture them over time to create a conversation at some point as the lead is nurtured and matured. I'm suggesting that the conversation needs to be moved to the front of the line
Oh yeah.
as frequently and often as possible to amp up the engagement of those follow-up sequences. If we take the conversation to the front of the line, the follow-up or the lead funnel or the nurturing funnel, you get just infinitely more engagement with that prospect moving down the pipeline. They'll remember your name when you have a good quality conversation, which is the sales element of it, versus sales versus lead nurturing. The sales elements, that good quality conversational interaction at the front end, that opens up the door to them actually looking at your emails and paying attention to the fact that you're sending them information. So, I mean, the distinction obviously is fairly simple to
Right.
the dividing line. Sales is that live interaction, that first point of conversation with the prospect versus the sales sequence you're setting up in your follow-up campaigns.
I really like that you're talking, that you specifically said moving the conversation to the front of the line versus just blasting out this like this general vanilla cookie cutter type of response. We're definitely going to be getting into that in a couple of the specific points today. So with that, I'm just going to nose right in. We've got 60 minutes to get through 1, 2, 3, 4 through 6 strategies. So basically, we've got about 10 minutes each. So anytime, Gary, you want to jump in, or if I've got something I want to ask you, I'll ask you. But otherwise, just feel free to jump in. I'm just going to kind of try to barrel through all of this as fast as possible and give it as much,
Sure.
give it as good of a job as I can in 10 minutes. So.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, starting it off with the 3-second rule, guys. And this actually ties in a lot with what Gary was saying. The 3 biggest mistakes agents make what we're going to talk about right now is the 3 biggest mistakes that agents make when sending leads an email, and the 3 decisions that a lead is making within 3 seconds about your email before they even open it. Okay. The issue here is that you don't want to give leads a dead giveaway that they're being marketed to. And you have to have one specific goal for your email that you're sending, which is engagement, not trying to close them. Now, let me give you the very 3 specific things. The 3 things that anybody, including your prospect, you or anybody in this world does when they open an email, you got to really think about the environment that people are opening an email in, okay? But before we get to that, the 3 things that the decision that somebody makes when they're looking at an email is 1, and this is really simple. So you might think that it's a little too simple, but really think about it for a minute. They look at who it's from. They look at the subject line, and they see the first sentence, that little preview of the email, whether you're in Gmail, Yahoo, or Outlook, they see the preview of the email with that first sentence. And those 3 things right there govern whether they're really going to open that email or not. Okay. Some of the biggest mistakes that I see agents making is sending out subject lines, like even Gary said a second ago, sending out subject lines that are really vague, generic, or they're written like they're a letter that's going to be read to a group of people, right? When you're sending out your email, you're sending it to one person. And even if you're sending that email out through an autoresponder series or through some CRM system that takes the same email and emails it out to 1,000 people, for example, those emails are still being read one at a time. So when you're sending out an email, within 3 seconds when somebody gets it, they are looking at who it's from, what the subject line is, and the teaser, and just kind of the preview part. And if between those 3 things, they don't see something that's worth opening or something that they recognize or something that's really related to them, they're not going to open an email. So it doesn't matter how well and how nicely you craft an email. If they're not opening it, all that crafting of the email doesn't really matter, right? So what I do when I'm sending out emails, and when I'm training with agents who are in some of our masterminds about sending out an email, the way I always the exercise I always have used and have people use is write up the email as if you were actually going to hit send and send it to somebody. And if it helps you, actually do just that. Like, write up the email that you would send out to a lead or a prospect, but type it up as if you were sending it to a friend or somebody that you know, so that the entire subject line, the entire body of the email it has this energy to it of like you're actually sending it one-on-one, and you're actually sending it in a conversational way, not in just like some generic marketing blast. You really have to think about the environment that people are opening their emails in today, right? So typically people are checking their email 3 to 10 times a day, right? As agents, we obviously check it way more than that. But let's say typically people are checking their email 3 to 10 times a day. Now, most often they're actually checking their email on their phone, right? When people check their phone for their email, they're typically not doing it every 5 seconds, right? They're doing it maybe once an hour or so, or thereabouts. So what happens when they're coming back to their phone? They have bunches of emails. Gary, I'd be hard pressed to know of anybody who isn't getting a lot of email every single day, right? Like just everybody's getting a lot of email every day. So when somebody comes back to check their email, they're going to be checking anywhere from 5 to 20 emails. For me personally, if I walk away for an hour and come back, I've easily got at least 20 emails in my inbox. I don't know what's the number for you, Gary?
Yeah, it's similar, 15 to 20. I think most agents are probably falling in that same category anymore. There's so much noise out there to cut through the clutter. You really got to dial into what these points you're making.
Exactly. And the joke I make sometimes too is that person might be in a meeting and they went to the bathroom, and they're having a bathroom break, and that's when they're checking their phone, for example, maybe in the bathroom, as they're standing before they walk out, and they're just going to really quickly scan their email, or whatever, or they're on lunch, they're in a hurry, and they're just going to scan their email. If you're sending folks just a big generic letter that looks like it was sent out to 1,000 people, the likelihood and the chances of you getting that email open are very, very low. And they're even lower in terms of getting engagement or response. One of the biggest challenges that we face as agents who buy leads is we're buying the lead and they opted in on Trulia, but then when we email them, it's coming from, Gary at Remax or Andre at Century 21, right? And so there's not even any continuity from where you bought the lead to you actually sending them an email. Like to them, it's just like coming out of nowhere. So your email has to be so there's nothing you can do about the name unless you go and change your name that you would send it out from, but I would not recommend that. So the only thing that you can focus on with this is specifically your subject line and what you're going to put in the message. Okay, now you're probably asking what to put into it or what to write. So let's just go into the next point, because the next point can really help with that. This is the Lazarus lead method. Okay, this is the magic. If you've not heard this before, it's called the magic 9-word email. I forget who came up with it. It's either Joe Polish or Dean Jackson. One of those guys. I really don't remember who came up with it first, but in those circles we hear about it, we talk about it all the time. It's kind of become a rule of thumb. But the magic 9-word email is an email that expects a reply, and it can actually get dead leads to come back to life. And if you do nothing else today, what I would do is, if you have a bunch of leads that have not responded to you that you've purchased and they're just sitting there dead, send them a 9-word email that specifically goes something like this. Gary, are you looking to buy a home or an investment? That's it. No. As Gary said earlier too, it's all about getting engagement and conversation at the front end of the funnel. Making it feel personal. Not only, and you can't guess what it is that they're really looking for. Even whatever data you got from Trulia or Zillow, you're not going to be able to guess very precisely and perfectly what it is that they may or may not want in their criteria, their life, their goals. So if you can't do that, then what you need to do is send them something that has 100% expectation of a response, so they feel like it was just to them, and also now you are making it very, very easy for them to respond. Okay. The second point here is that the key here is to send an email that feels just like a personal one-on-one email that is expecting a reply. You can send this out to 1,000 leads, but just remember that these emails are being read one at a time, right? So instead of sending somebody 3 paragraphs, and even in the last couple of days, I've had emails come back to you guys from some of you guys who have been answering my question about what's one of the hardest things you have, what's one of the biggest challenges you have with lead conversion, right? And lead generation and lead conversion. And quite a few of the responses were along the lines of, heck, I'm frustrated. They opt in. They want this information. I send them a great email saying, hey, this is my name. This is what I do. Here's my credential. Here's what I can offer you. Feel free to call me anytime. I can be of service. That is actually one of the worst approaches that you can take. That is actually one of the worst approaches that you can take. One, they don't know who you are. 2, you're pitching and selling you're pitching them out of the gate. 3, they might not even know how the heck you got their information. Now, some of you mentioned that you do put in, hey, you opted in off of Trulia, etc., that sort of thing. And so you mentioned that. But what you're causing is you're causing them to have to think, to do a lot of work, to read, right? To think about their response. You're asking them to go from just having opted in for some information on Trulia to taking the huge, big leap of picking up the phone and calling you, a salesperson. Now, regardless of whether you're a salesperson or not in terms of your approach, and you really are there to just help them provide value, most people see real estate agents as salespeople, right? And we just have to deal with that. So when sending these emails out, you have to you have to write them and send them in a way that is very personal, one-on-one, very short. And it's actually a real rule of thumb. Don't send an email that's over 9 words. And it actually will make you a much better copywriter and communicator if you can. And what you're doing is you're always asking a sorting question. That's what's one of the keys. You're always asking a sorting question. Are you planning to do either or? It's either or. Are you looking to buy a home or an investment property? Okay. See, and so all you're doing is you're just expecting a 1-word response from them, right? But at least what you're doing is you're setting them up to be able to just read it really quickly. Heck, without short of an email, typically they see it in the preview, and then you get it, and then and if they'll respond, right? If they're serious, if they're really looking, they'll respond. Got some questions. Got some questions coming in here. What would you use as a subject line? Personally, for me, and you can actually take this as a great case study even from President Obama's 2 campaigns, some of the subject lines that they would send out in their emails. I honestly, the very first one that I would always send out, the only subject line that it would have is, hey. Honestly, hey. And the reason I would make it so short, and it's so counterintuitive to what we would send, right? Because we're trained and we're imprinted with, well, run out there and offer them this and say that and offer them this. You're doing too much too soon. I would say, hey, and the reason why is because if they're opening it in Yahoo or Gmail, see, you really got to think about the environment that people are opening your email in and the environment and the pace of life that they're checking it in. So if it says, hey, it then gives that much more space for the preview of the email to be available. And if you've sent out a 9-word email, it's going to all be previewed and shown right there when they just glance at it before they even open it. And this especially is important for mobile, because mobile devices, where right now, if you don't know it, about 85% of email, 85% of, for example, of our traffic right now for us as ProQuest Technologies comes off of that's coming off of Facebook is, for example, mobile traffic. Right? So I don't know what the exact stat would be on how much of your emails are opened with mobile devices, but let me tell you, it's a lot higher than you probably think it is. Okay? So you have to think also about the small screen, the small size. If you're sending somebody 3 paragraphs and they're opening it on their skinny small iPhone, they're not going to read it all the way through. Very rarely will they read it all the way through, especially if they don't know you and they're just a lead that got flipped over to they're just a lead that you bought. They're not going to read it all the way through. They're going to back out if they even opened it, and they're going to go to the next email. But hey, if a friend sends them an email and it says, hey, and then in the preview they see, do you want to grab a beer tonight at, the Lodge or the Wild Rover? That's a couple of restaurants that are local to me. See, that's the energy that you're wrapping your email in. And the only goal, see, this is the problem, is the main goal that you got to have with this is to get them to engage with you. Most agents, when we go into sending an email to a lead for the first time, we have we don't have any goal. We don't know what we want out of it. What we want out of it is a commission check. But you have to understand, you're dealing with the lead. You're not even dealing with the prospect yet. I have a question here that says, do you put your email signature in the 9-word email? In the 9-word email that I initially would send out, I do not put my signature with a bunch of different links and a bunch of different things that I would send out. I typically don't. If that's something that you would really prefer to, in a couple of strategies, I'll show you guys a method that I would use to send out the signature. The kinds of signatures that I send out when I was an agent and what I would suggest to you to send out are going to be completely different than anything that you have ever sent out right now. I bet you that any of you guys are sending out right now, but by the end of this webinar, you'll see just how ninja and powerful this email signature can be. And the other thing too, Chris, is if you're going to send out an email with a signature, and I would not send it with anything more than just Chris. I wouldn't say thank you, wouldn't say anything. Like if you've got a good friend and you send them an email saying, hey, do you want to go this or that? I mean, would you really even put your signature in there? If you did, it would really only be your first name. You'd say Chris. You wouldn't say thank you or regards or my best wishes or sincerely. As soon as you do that, it's a dead giveaway that it's marketing. Okay, and that's exactly what and back to the previous point too, really quickly. If you're sending out, do not send out emails in graphic emails. Now maybe you can guess why I would say that, but you know how you can send out, like HTML nicely designed emails? That is an absolute no-no in my playbook. That is an absolute no-no in my playbook for an agent to use when sending emails to a prospect or a lead. The reason is because when they're looking at the email before opening it, what they're going to see as the very first line in the preview is a bunch of HTML gobbledygook. Okay? Or it's going to be that thing, like for example, I'm in Gmail, but this happens a lot of other email service providers too, it's that preview line that says, what does it say? It says, click yes for images. Click yes to turn on images. If they see that in the preview, they automatically know it's not an email intended for them, like personally for them, right? They don't feel it's personal. And in today's day and age, when it comes to lead conversion and lead nurturing, it's all about, as Gary was saying, making it as personalized as possible. And since you don't know their life goals, you don't know their story, you can't customize a message to that. You then, therefore, have to flip to making it feel as personalized as a best friend. Okay? Very, very important. You guys cannot underestimate the power of making an email feel like it's personalized. Got some questions coming in here. Let me see if I can read this one. So, good question from John. I thought it was illegal according to NAR to not include name, company, city, and license to sell real estate. I'm not going to get into splitting hairs about what is legal or not legal, and neither am I giving anybody advice to break the law. Don't even think for a second that I'm telling you to be shady or spammy or anything like that. As a matter of fact, if you catch the drift of what I'm saying make it very personalized and very focused on customer service. If you check this, first I would say just check the rules and the laws in your state. Check in with your broker. In a few strategies, I'll show you the way I would send out a signature if I were to include a signature. All right, John? So just hang out for a minute and you'll see how I would send out a signature if I were to send out a signature. So that is the email that I would send out to a bunch of dead leads that you have that are sitting in there. What I would send out to them is, first name, John, George, Susie, Harry, whatever it is, and say, are you looking to buy? Are you looking to buy a home or an investment? And that's it. Or some other kind of an email that makes sense. That's an either or choice, and it's 9 words. And what you're looking for is just that engagement. But I would use this exact same format for when you get a lead, too. So it works for potentially resurrecting leads, and it works for engaging with new leads. And if you don't think this has weight, because I've talked to a lot of agents and they just think, oh, that would never work. If you've got 500 leads that nobody's ever responded to, take 100 and email them that today, and just see how many responses you actually get. And make it a subject line, again, that you would send to a personal friend. Like, write out the email as if you were emailing it to your best friend, and do hit send, and have them laugh and chuckle and ask you why you sent them that email. You must have sent the email to the wrong person. But make sure you're sending it in a way that it feels like it would go to a friend. And you'll be amazed when you do that, how there's little nuances, but how differently you'll actually phrase an email, right? Because most of the time when we send out emails, we're sending them out like we're expecting everybody's going to gather in a big group of 10, 20, 30 people, and they're going to get that email read out loud to them as a group. And when you do that, people sense that in the email. Janice just sent me a question. If they do not respond on the first try, do you reword and send another one 3 to 5 days later? And if so, how many attempts? Great question, Janice. That's going to be the rack the shotgun strategy in a few minutes. So if the Lazarus lead method didn't work, then what you're going to do is you're going to use a shotgun strategy. Okay, moving on to the next one. So then I try to put these in the best order possible, guys. This is kind of like, the 3-second rule, the Lazarus lead method, the chess master method. These are all like little play calls. These are all like little strategies in my playbook that I can use to call, like, if I'm playing, kind of use a metaphor as you make it feel like it's like a football game, right? So these are my plays. So I try to put them in the best order I could that would be sequential. Janice asks, doesn't hey feel like spam? Well, Janice, I personally have used that a lot with great success. If you can come up with another subject line that feels very personal, but it isn't some sort of a like obvious teaser thing, like sometimes people try to put these subject lines, agents try to create these subject lines that are like teasers, like trying to make them super cool. Then it's going to be, then it will come across as, that will come across as a lot more spammy than it will to be really just kind of a human element in the subject line. But if you can come up with a different one, then come up with a different one. Another one that I've used a little bit is actually a funky one. I would use the word strange question mark. Right? And what I would do there is if the lead had opted in for something like King County, right? Or whatever county they're in that you got the lead off of, the lead showed interest in from wherever you bought the lead, you would say strange question with a question mark, which actually is a strong hook. And then the 9-word email is, are you looking to buy in King County or in, Kitsap County? So you ask them an either or sorting question, and the subject line is literally strange question with a question mark after it. Okay, that's another interesting one that I found that really can work. Especially for open rate. If you have an email, if your email provider can show you the open rate, you will be surprised at how much that one gets opened. Okay, so again, you just got to play around with things that are very they're very not corporate, very professional type of thing, right? Okay, chess master method. The chess master method is most agents overwhelm a lead with too much. Instead you have to apply a sorting questions, right? And this is kind of already talked about this, but the key here to the chess master method is you're already knowing exactly where you're going to take them within 3 moves. Okay, so it's like playing chess. It's like if somebody opts in for a lead, if you buy a lead off of Trulia or Zillow, right? And I mean, that like 99% of the time probably they're going to be looking to buy a home, right? So asking that question of, well, are you looking to buy a home or an investment? That's like a no-brainer, right? I mean, 99% of the time, I think personally, your response, at least from my experience, your responses are going to be a home. Okay. Um, so what happens is that, I've got a couple of questions really quickly here before I continue about I've missed the first 15 minutes or I won't be able to stay for the whole thing. Will there be a recording? Yes, there will be a recording. We will provide the slides. We just don't have a specific time and date for it, but we'll do our best to get that out to you guys. So back to what I was saying. So what happens is that the reason you're asking them that question is not because you need the freaking answer. Okay, you know that they're looking, right? But what you need to understand is you need to put yourself in the position of the prospect's shoes. And this is the big difference between lead nurturing and lead conversion and already being face-to-face selling. This is the metaphor I want you to think of. When somebody's a lead, they're out in the dark. They're out in this vague darkness of space of the night called the internet, right? And your whole job as a conversion funnel is to get them to come out of the dark into the light. The light being with you you being in their living room in a listing appointment or in the car with you driving to look at properties, okay? You can't just take somebody from the dark and throw them into the light. You can't just try to flip on a light switch, right? The eyes hurt. They've been in the dark for too long, right? They're going to close their eyes. They're going to back away. They're going to get frustrated. They're not going to respond well. You have to gradually bring them into the light. The reason you're asking these sorting, simple, 9-word email questions is not because you don't freaking know what it is that they're looking for. It's because you need to create engagement that feels safe, simple. You're not asking them to read a lot. The only response they have to give you is literally one word, okay? But you know where you're trying to take them. So you know that if they would, that typically they'll say, buying a home. The reason you're asking sorting questions such as, are you looking to buy a home or an investment, as I've said before, is you're giving them a chance to respond with a short answer, okay? And then when they answer, don't make the mistake of rushing and getting excited and wanting to sell them and sending them the 3-paragraph email again. No, you sort again. You're playing chess. You already know where they're going to go, but you're giving them the opportunity to make that move to tell you, because what you're doing is creating engagement. If you're not creating engagement with the lead, you're wasting time and money, especially if you're sending them your paragraph emails telling them how amazing, awesome, and helpful you are. They don't care. They don't know you, and you're selling them, okay? So the next typical question I would ask after they respond, if it's to buy a home, is King or Snohomish County better for you? Okay? And what you'll want to do is craft out 3 or 4 or 5 different 3 to 4 email sequences that you can just test to see which one typically gives you the best engagement rate. Okay? And what you do is you keep doing this until they send you what I call the love letter. Okay? A percentage of people, a percentage of your prospects after 3 to 4 short iterations back and forth like this, which, by the way, feel very free to send these emails to them off your mobile with, the email sending out saying sent for a mobile device. Because again, it feels like a human being, right? But what'll happen is after 3 to 4 iterations, if you've just kept it simple and you've kept asking sorting questions, they'll send you the paragraph email telling you exactly what it is they're looking for, why they're looking for it, etc. Okay? This is a universal email strategy that I've been using in a lot more niches and spaces than just real estate, and it works universally, B2B, B2C, because it all boils down to people, folks. It's all about humans and people, okay? And what happens is that if somebody just opts in for some information, you need to put yourself in their shoes, their worldview, their perspective, and understand that they just opted in for a little information, okay? As a metaphor for fishing, what's happened is there's a little nibble on your hook. So you're not going to go yanking the fishing pole because you're going to rip it out of their mouth and you're going to lose that fish. You want to let the fish keep nibbling on the bait until you feel there's a stronger tug. How do you do that? Well, you create it by giving them really simple sorting questions that can keep them engaged and make it feel safe to be engaged. Like and this is where you're actually really showing that you're really helpful and you're all about customer service without saying, hey, I'm really helpful and I'm all about customer service. Because once you have to say that, that actually takes away from the value of whether you can provide that or not. It has to come across in the way you're doing it, right? You really want to come across in this role as a T-Mobile or Verizon customer service type person. Make them feel like you're just asking them sorting questions, no pressure, and you're just helping them out. Before I move to the next point here, Gary, you got anything you want to maybe jump in and say about this so far?
I want to jump in because what you're describing is an exact parallel of what we've been teaching agents for years about the opening dialogue when they get to a conversation with a prospect. What happens typically is you know, with the email sequence, it's a three paragraph email that they don't read. With the interactions on a live conversation, it runs in almost the exact same parallel in that agents very quickly charge into pre-qualifying the prospect with too many sharp-angled questions. They start to ask questions that the prospect immediately identifies as a sales agenda, and they bail. The prospect, the moment they sniff out salesperson, they're gone. And it's the exact same sort of methodology we've been teaching for the live conversation that runs exactly parallel to what you're describing with this email interaction. It's a series of appropriately asked questions that lead the prospect to opening up. There's, after a series of delicately worded questions that open up the prospect and get them to begin engaging in a dialogue and sharing a little bit more information, there hits this moment. You describe it as a love letter, which is great because that's exactly what happens in a live conversation at the 5 to 7 minute mark when a prospect starts to sense that they can trust you and they exhale and they begin to let their guard down. They begin to open up and really share with you what's going on with their life circumstances and why they're wanting to buy or sell. So the sequence you're describing, it's actually a counterintuitive sales sequence that we teach in the live conversation as well. It's an exact parallel.
Right. Well, you know why it's a parallel and why it works in the live conversation, the email, because we're dealing with people and people don't change.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
It's humans. You see, a lot of these coaching platforms and all these strategies that are taught I'm like, they miss it by a mile because they dehumanize the human.
Right.
You got to talk like a human.
They turn it into a constantly scripts and dialogues driven process.
Right.
When human beings aren't that. Unfortunately, the prospect on the other side may not have the script.
Right. Yeah.
So
right.
It's one of those. And in fact, when they start to sense they don't have the script, they immediately sense sales agenda and bail out. I mean, I just had this conversation with a lady yesterday who's been prospecting expireds for 10 years using scripts and dialogues that were working 10 years ago, but do not work today. They simply don't. She's having such a terrible time actually breaking through because, again, it's just human nature is human nature, and
right.
We have to get outside of our own experience and put ourselves in their shoes and their experience and understand that we can't immediately jump into asking the qualifying questions. It's like going out on a first date and asking whoever you went on the date with that night to marry you. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. You can't jump to that point in the relationship until you've laid the groundwork, until you've engaged and interacted and developed this bond and rapport that enables them to sense that they can actually trust you. And
yep.
So you're describing it in a very similar way that we actually train it in the sales dialogue as well. Actually, I say sales dialogue. It's really more of it's similar to this process of sifting and sorting questions like you're asking in the email sequence here.
Right. Exactly. Chris asks the question, would you recommend to create a 9-word sorting question autoresponder for new leads that register? Chris, very emphatically, yes. That was actually became my go-to autoresponder was that question. And anybody who answered it I would focus 90% of my time every single day on whoever responded to my sorting question. Because obviously, that's a nibble, they're on the hook, and they're, if It's the pole. If you've got 10 fishing lines in the water and one of them's showing a little nibble, which one are you going to go play with, right? You're going to go play with the one that has a fish that's nibbling on it. So one of the biggest things that we end up as real estate agents doing is wasting our time on leads that are complete trash. Gregory asks, how quickly do you send the next email after they respond to a sorting question? As soon as you get it, Gregory. It's the same as if you were talking with a friend. I mean, again, you got to keep in the mindset of talking to a friend is as soon as, if they respond, you respond, right? And then they'll respond when they can. And if you respond just as soon as you get it, there's no too soon of a response to it. If you're doing it in that really laid back sorting question methodology, just sifting and sorting, asking them questions about themselves. And guys, seriously, stick to 9 words. Don't go 2, 3 sentences. Don't think, oh, no, I'm just going to say a little extra to show how brilliant and helpful I am. No, you are going to push them away. It's 9 words or less. Okay, really use that as just a concrete rule of thumb, and you'll be amazed at the kind of results you can get with that, because it's so uncommon. It's so counterintuitive that when you use it, you're like the only one in their inbox that's talking to them like that. You're the only one that sounds like a friend. What you're doing, and I'm not going to get into this right now, but what you're doing is you're actually getting into the psychology of the limbic brain and how that operates, okay, which is what you need to be doing in your sales approach. Okay, so the next thing is the cookie crumb funnel. We got to move fast here. The cookie crumb funnel is so. If you get, well, you better be applying everything I'm sharing, but that's just me being biased and sharing it with you because I want to see you guys succeed. But the cookie crumb funnel is one of the most, what I think personally was one of the most revolutionary things for me in my sales and marketing. I apply it to every single niche that I work in and do lead generation in. And this thing right here is gangbusters, okay? Most agents ask, so let me walk you through this metaphor, okay? Most agents, the way they talk to prospects and leads is they ask leads if they want the agent to bake them some cookies. And what happens is pushes people away because of obligation. What you got to do is you got to show them the cookies already baked and offer them a plateful to create effortless engagement. Okay? What I mean by that is imagine if somebody comes over to your house, okay? Or you go over to somebody's house and you're hanging out with them and they're like, hey, you want me to go in the kitchen and bake you some cookies right now? Most people would I think more than even 9 times out of 10, I think 9.9 times out of 10 would say, no, man, don't worry about it, right? Like, we are imprinted and trained to not want people to go out of their way on our behalf. So what happens is that, but if you come over to someone's house and and you're sitting on the couch in the living room and they come by and say, they go to the kitchen and come back out a minute later and say, hey, here's a plate full of cookies I baked earlier today. Have some cookies. Then 99.9% of people you would actually go and have a cookie. It'd almost be kind of rude not to have a cookie, right? So the way you run your entire funnel, your calls to action have to be based around offering people cookies instead of asking them if they want you to bake them a cookie. And I'll give you some exact schedules. I'll give you some exact specific examples of this, okay? Don't give folks a call to action where they feel like they will be stuck with a salesperson or obligated to you because you did a bunch of work for them. Okay, you have to make it feel like a normally scheduled thing and tell them they're welcome to have a bite. Okay, now let me just dive nose deep into this. Let's take the submarine deep here, and let me just give you some very specific examples that you can use to do exactly this. And we're doing this right now with pockets of agents where I'm working on active lead generation in markets, and we're testing and tweaking different things, okay? Most agents, when you end your emails or even any sort of a lead magnet you might have, like a white paper or whatever it may be, most of us, because of mainstream training, let's use a white paper, for example, or a lead magnet or an email. You type all this up, 2, 3 paragraphs, and then you end it with the vanilla, atypical ending. Well, my name is my name is John Deere, and I'm a great real estate agent, and I'm here to help you anytime you need. I can answer all your questions. All you got to do is pick up the phone and call me. I'm here for you 24/7. Okay? Let me ask you, how well is that conversion rate? How well is that call to action working for you? It's not working well at all. That's why we have bloated, obese databases that we've spent thousands of dollars on generating leads and not gotten a single freaking deal out of them because people don't respond to that kind of stuff. Part of it is because they have to pick up the phone and they know they're going to get stuck talking to a salesperson. That's how they see you, no matter how good or nice you are or how customer service oriented you are. It's not about you. It's about your lead and your prospect, and you have to put yourself in their shoes. So here's what I would use if I were you to trip this issue or short circuit this issue altogether and actually create engagement. How do you offer a plate full of cookies already baked? You have to create things that are already, they seem like they're already in motion that the person can just participate in. Yesterday we were having a mastermind with some agents, a handful of agents in a room, and actually at 2:30 we've got another mastermind. And what I'm doing is I'm specifically teaching the cookie crumb funnel. And here's the 3 things I told agents and some of the loan officers in the room yesterday. I told them this is exactly what you have to do. I'm going to give you the agent example, and then I'm going to give you a couple of loan officer examples, just so that you can kind of get a flavor of a context. Okay, this is what I told the agents. You have to have 3 calls to action. Okay, 3 different calls to action. 3 different things that they can engage in depending on whether they want peanut butter cookie, chocolate chip cookie, or the macadamia nut, okay? And you have to put yourself in the role of the prospect. If they're a buyer, let's take a buyer, for example. Let's just talk about buyers because we're going to run out of time here. If they're a buyer, what are the main things that they're interested in? There's only really 3 things that they're interested in, right? 1, to potentially look at a home. 2, to see if they qualify financially, or 3, to just kind of stay up to date on prices of homes and what's happening because they might be buying in 9 months. Okay? If they're at all serious, those are the only 3 possible things that they would be interested in doing. Okay? If they're serious, which we'll get to in a minute if they're not. But those are the only 3 things they could possibly want to do. So knowing what their possible actions can be, again, playing chess, you know what their only 3 possible options are to do if they want to actually play the game of looking for a home. The first thing I told the agents was you have to go from asking them if they want to see a home and setting them up on property drips and spamming them basically to offering what I would call pick an area that you really want to dominate in and offering them buyer tours. And the way it works is what you do is you say every day we'd offer a buyer's tour at 10 o'clock and at 2 o'clock in Kirkland. Okay? And we'll just show up at this address at this time and we'll take you on the tour. We basically go and tour, we show the 3 best properties that have come on the market in the last week. Okay. The other strategy I gave them is show them a really bad fixer-upper, show them a really, really, really expensive home, and then show them a home right in the middle. Okay. Now, you never want to do a tour that's really typically more than 3 homes. Okay, because it's going to take a long time. And what happens is if 4 or 5 people show up, they follow you in a caravan with their cars, and you take them to the 2, 3 properties. All right. If you really want to scale this out, like I told the agents yesterday, you go buy a big van, a nice van, and then you take people around in that. And when you take them on the tour, you're just offering that. You make sure you offer them a packet of the 3 properties that they're going to look at with, some information on them that they can have. And what you do is you don't have to do this every day. Like the agents that we were hanging out with yesterday, I was telling them just make it a once a week in different neighborhoods. So you can say every Tuesday we do a buyer tour at 10 a.m. and at 2 p.m. In Kirkland. Every Wednesday, we do a buyer tour every 10 a.m. and every 2 p.m. or 2 p.m. or 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. for people who get off work, whatever it is. The concept is this. You know that if they're serious, they want to look at homes. So offer them to look at homes in a way where you're not saying, let me bake you a cookies. Let me, put together a list of things for you. Let me schedule a time to meet with you. Let's go look at homes, because they're going to feel obligated to you, okay? Or they're going to feel like they're causing obligation, like they sent you in the kitchen, you have to spend an hour there baking cookies for them. But if you say, hey, we have a tour already happening every Tuesday at 10 a.m. and at 2 p.m., then all you have to do is show up at this time at this address, and what we'll do is we'll take you around and we'll show you the best buys in the market, okay? Now, this is very counterintuitive and different to how we're trained to sell or to provide our most excellent 5-star customer service. But listen, let me tell you the truth. Nobody gives a crap about your excellent 5-star customer service when they're a prospect. What they want to know is what's in it for them. How can you help them in a way that doesn't obligate them? And this is 5-star customer service, is when you set things up like this for people that makes it easy for them to engage. And listen, now you've got people coming to you face to face. Okay, so think back for a second and I'm going to start tying this all together. Think back for a second to when you were sending out the chess master strategy method, right? The 9-word email, the sorting questions, and then they say, email 3 or 4, they either give you the love letter, or even if they don't, they've told you've identified basically that you are selling a home, that they're looking for homes in, let's say, the Waterbrook community, which is in, Kingsville, Illinois. Well, then you would respond and say, oh, hey, well, by the way, we actually have a home buyer's tour in Kingsville, Illinois, every Tuesday at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. This is the address where everybody meets, and whoever shows up, you'll get a packet of that month's best deals, and we'll take you on a tour. This is the psychology of lead conversion, lead nurturing, is offering people small cookie crumbs that can get them to keep coming to you in a way that's not salesy, pushy, scripts and dialogues, all this stuff. You're leaving it natural and free-flowing. Okay. The other thing that I was telling agents to offer is a open line call. Okay. An open line call is basically something that they say, hey, every you can offer this every day, 2 days a week, whatever it is, but something like this, something that goes along the lines of this, and you can use your imagination for your business, but goes along the lines of every Wednesday from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock, we hold 15-minute open line sessions. And what you can do is you can call in and have schedule a 15-minute conversation with us, and then call in at your time, or we'll call you, and you'll have just 15 minutes to get all your questions answered. The psychology there is now you're telling them, I'm going to hang up at you at 15 minutes, right? It's a push away or a pull away, right? Either way you want to see it. So you're offering, and you're already doing it. Like for 2 hours, you're just going to be doing open line discovery call sessions. So you make it really easy for them. You're making it easier on them to interact with you, engage with you. We use a tool called Time Trade. Gary uses it. I use it. We all use a tool called Time Trade. And what it is that you can just set a bunch of time slots that are available in your calendar, and it gives you a link to the page. It gives you a link to a web page, and then you can send that link out, and people will automatically pick pick this time slot that works for them, enter their name and their telephone number in, and then it takes that available time slot off that calendar and it updates it in your calendar. So every day if you've got any open line call sessions, and you can flip it around for sellers. Okay, I have a question here from Ann who says, what about sellers? Suppose you have a lead who wants a value for their house. How do you get them to interact with you after you send a quick estimate? Well, first off, you don't send them a quick estimate. You do some sorting questions. And then what you do is you offer them an open line session. The other thing you can offer them too that's good for buyers or sellers that I strongly recommend is what I call a weekly market watch webinar. And that's the third call to action, is a weekly Market Watch webinar. Okay. It literally can be 15, 20, 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be long. It's to the point. The key is for people to show up and get to know more about you without you pitching yourself, but actually demonstrating that you're an expert, that you're a pro, that you provide customer service without you saying, hey, I'm an expert, I'm a pro, I provide customer service. Okay? You have to run your business in a way that demonstrates that, not in a way where you have to say that. Okay? So those are the 3 calls to action that I suggested to agents, for the agents to have and for the loan officers. On the loan officer side, what I told them is have the open line calls, have the weekly webinar, except instead of Market Watch on real estate, it's a Market Watch on loans. And instead of a buyer tour, which is the face-to-face, the loan officers version is going to be twice a month. They'll do a loan workshop, a home buyer loan workshop at like a library. Okay, and that is actually what becomes your super signature. Is your signature isn't your pretty little mug, God bless you, or your awesome little slogan about we're the best XYZ, because that's just plain BS. That's hogwash. And it's not about you asking for freaking referrals, because we appreciate your referrals. No kidding, you appreciate referrals. Don't put that in your email. There's so much psychology around why you wouldn't do that. And in the future, we're going to do a webinar on generating referrals, specifically just on generating referrals. But your super signature below your name, so in the PS section, is you ought to have 3 links to 3 different things that says schedule an open line discovery call session that we do every Tuesday from 12 to 2 or whatever you pick. Register for our webinar or for our call, our Market Watch call that we do once a week, or check out our buyers tours. Okay, and again, that's not an exhaustive list, guys. I'm pressed for time. I'm just trying to share with you some basic. I'm trying to share with you an understanding of the cookie crumb funnel, okay, and how you actually get leads to engage with you. And you do the same thing with your direct mail, right? If you're farming, when you send out a farming thing, a farming postcard, on it, don't say, call me for your free estimate. Heck no, because now they're going to obligate you, right? And now they're going to obligate themselves to you, and they made you work. What you do is you say, if you're interested in the value of your home, every Tuesday from 12 to 2, we have a 15-minute open line sessions. You can call in and get a quick free estimate with one of our real estate professionals. Okay, you're just making, and now what you've done is you've created 15 minutes of conversation for yourself. And don't you dare go past 15 minutes. End the call. You got to create that trust that when you say something, you mean it. But then tell them how you'll follow up with them. But now you've created an opportunity to follow up with them because you've had a phone conversation. So the way I described the cookie crumb funnel to the mastermind yesterday was, for a super, super, super finicky lead, they're actually going to go through all 3. They'll come to the webinar, the Market Watch webinar, because it's the most anonymous. Then they'll come to the call, the open line call, because it's a little bit less anonymous, but still a phone call. And then they'll come on the buyer tour where you get them face-to-face, which, again, the end of the game for a real estate agent is get your potential buyer, seller face-to-face. Gary, anything you want to chime in with here before I go to the next point as I read questions?
No, actually, I'd just rather you bowl through to the next point was because of time constraints.
Yeah, okay.
I think you're nailing it, dude. You're right on.
Okay, thanks. Nancy says, are the 3 houses, the fixer-upper expensive and the medium-price home, done on the same day tour? Yes, Nancy, it's done on the same day so that they have that real-time comparison. Okay. If you're planning to meet with them, but not by a real estate office because it's a neighborhood far away from your real estate office, just pick a typical landmark like a Starbucks or something that anybody would easily find, and say we're all going to meet there at 12:30, and then we're all heading out, right? Something like that. The other thing I want to add to that is, oh yeah, just like the 9-word email rule is really honestly a rule. Don't go more than 9 words. Like, do your best not to. You really don't want to go over 3 houses because with a group of people it gets overwhelming. The super cool thing is when you get 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of buyers to show up, if you've got enough leads in your database for that, right? Or you've been doing a good job of providing sorting questions. And then when they say, well, yeah, they give you the love letter, then you can offer them, you can offer them an open line call or a buyer's tour, right? So that's a super natural way to convert a new lead that has engaged with you. But on the flip side too, what you need to do understand is now if you use your signature this way, it's cool to send, it's all right to send out the 9-word email and have this as your signature because you don't have your picture in it or anything like that. I mean, you just have your name and your DRE number or whatever you got to have in it by law. But the signature then after that is these calls to action that is super customer service oriented in a way that's offering a plate of cookies, not obligating them and selling them. Okay? So moving on to the next point really quickly. Racking the shotgun. What do you do? What do you do? And I'm going to do my best, guys, to wrap this up in 10 minutes. Okay, it's 11 o'clock right now on the head. I've got 2 more strategies I want to cover. I'm going to bang these out in 10 minutes or less just so you guys can get on with your day. Racking the shotgun. If the Lazarus lead method does not work, if you don't get Lazarus to come out of the grave or to engage with you, if they just won't respond, then it's time to blast them every single day for 30 days until they either unsubscribe, tell you too much, or engage with you, okay? Assume, and the mindset you have to take to this is assume that they are strong intent, high probability buyer, seller, and match their pace. When someone is truly looking, every single day isn't too much. Let me give you an example, right? When people who I know, my friends, are looking to buy a home, they are looking on Craigslist, they're looking on websites every single freaking day, right? Because they're doing it. They're strong intent, high probability. Understand that and match that. See, so what happens is that if you know they're looking every day, and if you have something of value to send them every single day or to reach out to them every single day, then do that because it matches their pace. If they're not strong intent, high probability, then it doesn't really matter anyways. They'll unsubscribe or they'll tell you to, get lost. And that's exactly what you want them to do. Agents have this psychology around, oh my gosh, I've spent $2,000 on these leads that I have. I don't want to lose them. Listen, it's a false positive if they're sitting in your database and they're not making you any money. You need them listing or buying and turning into an escrow closing. Now, I would much rather have 1,999 leads unsubscribe and have one turn into a close and make my money back than to have 2,000 leads that are just sitting there not doing anything for me. Okay? Now, the question becomes, what in the heck do you send them every day for 30 days, right? Is it a 9-word email every single time? No. Here's what I would do. I would write a 30-day sequence, and what I would do is every 5 to 10 days, it would be a 9-word email saying, that's a variation of a sorting question. Are you looking to buy in Kingsville or in Humpersville, right? Are you looking to buy in X county or Y county? Sorting questions. In between, what you send them are these things. Once a week, you send them a market watch email. Don't put them on a freaking property drip. If you've got anybody on a property drip right now, take them off that property drip. The reason unless they're an actual really good buyer, I'm talking about just cold leads in a database. Okay, so remember that everything I'm saying right now is about cold leads in a database of leads that aren't responding. Okay, you need to send them. You need to stop sending them on a property drip because what you're doing is if that property drip is emailing them every single freaking day, you're creating this overwhelm and this abundance of stuff on the market. In sales, you got to create a little bit of scarcity here. So don't send it to them every day. Send them a market watch email once a week. And what you do is you go in your database and you just carve them up by county or by city, and then you won't have, so you have 3-4 categories. And then you just send out basically your top 3 property picks for that area, for that county or for that city to the people who kind of shared that lead identifier, that these people opted in, or these people were interested in homes in Kingsville, or these people were interested in homes in Brownsville, or whatever it is, okay? So you're sending them a weekly market watch email, and you're sending them a 9-word email every 5 to 10 days, okay? And then all the rest of the emails are take a really common question that you get from buyers and just say, And what you do is you take a snippet of that and put in the subject line, and then you open the email with, I got this question from one of my buyers. Parentheses, question, question mark, parentheses, dash, first name of the buyer, initial the last name. Freaking come up with the questions, create some names, whatever they are, and then write up a 250 to 500 word email answering that question. And then, of course, have your super signature in there. Because what you're going to do is, what you'll find is that anybody who's super active is going to then have these questions that are common or atypical of active people. If they're not active, if they're not serious, it doesn't matter how much value you provide them, they're not going to work with you. Listen, here's the stats. 50% of leads are trash. A little bit over, actually. It's closer to 60%, but let's go with 50%. Okay? Now let me give you another stat. 15% of people will buy or sell in the next 90 days. 35% of 100 people will buy or sell in the next 18 months. These are actually stats for across every industry, B2B, B2C, technology, real estate, consumer products. Companies have followed up after trade events, etc., and basically monitored people and asked them, did you buy, did you buy, did you buy? And what they have found is that 15% of people will make a transaction in 90 days. 35% of people will make a transaction within 18 months. 50% of people never will. What you need to understand then is that 100%.
Jump in there for just one quick second?
Sure.
One quick second. I'm going to suggest that that's internet-based leads or these other lead sources you're talking about. If you identify high-intent, high-probability prospects, like one of the avenues that we have actually produces a 30% throwaway rate instead of 50%. So there are different avenues for isolating high-intent, high-probability prospects that actually defy that statistic you're talking about. Across the broad range of sources you're referencing, yes, that's true. However, there are channels and methods to isolate the high-intent, high-probability prospect where actually our better sources are a 30% throwaway rate. But that I just wanted to clarify, it depends on the channel and how you're isolating and identifying whether they're high-intent, high-probability.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's more in line with guerrilla marketing, right? Tactics, where you have your own funnel, you're doing things in your community. Yeah, just to tag on to the clarification, the good clarification that Gary made. Everything I'm talking about, guys, here is where you're buying leads from lead sources like Trulia, Zillow, Market Lead, or whatever it may be, where you really don't have a lot of qualitative control over their sourcing methodology. You don't have a lot of control over their quality control. So when you get that dispersion, that diffusion, unfortunately the junk rate goes up to 50 to 60%. But as Gary's saying, there are methods where in the future webinars, and we're going to tell you what webinars are coming up where we'll be sharing too, where we'll share some guerrilla marketing tactics where your throwaways are only 30%. So good clarification, Gary. What I was going to say too, so is with those stats in mind, 100% of your 90-day revenue is only in 15 out of 100 people. 85% of your potential revenue is in the 18-month funnel, right? But so few of us have anything at all that's capable of incubating somebody effectively for 18 months. So with that being said, what you have to understand is if you're buying leads online or if you have a lead database, divide it by 100 and then know that every lot of 100, no more than 15 people are going to do anything right now. And so that's why then racking the shotgun becomes a viable strategy, because you're looking for that cream to rise to the top. Okay, I don't have time to get into the actual story. There's an anecdotal story behind racking the shotgun. But what you're doing is you're racking the shotgun, you're making that noise, and you're looking for whoever turns around and recognizes that noise, whoever responds to it. If they're not a serious buyer or seller, they're not going to respond. And listen, the script, the 30-day script, just flip it for a seller, right? It's are you planning to, are you planning to sell X or Y right now or in 90 days? Are you planning, are you selling because of a job promotion or because of a move down? Whatever these sorting questions you can create, then you can have a weekly market watch email on prices of home selling, just like a mini comp report email, which you can just type up. And then the rest can be common questions from sellers. But you just got it. If they haven't responded to the Lazarus lead method, whoever did, take them out of this database. And whatever you've got left over, just rack the shotgun, blast them for 30 days. It's, you rise to the top or drop out. And you will extract lemon juice. You will extract lemon juice out of your lemon database, as I like to say, right? You got a bunch of lemons in there. You'll get some lemon juice out of it, but you have to do this. Last point, Goldilocks principle. Two biggest mistakes that agents make with lead conversion is either one, pushing too hard with too much too soon, or two, not doing nearly enough at all because you're afraid that you'll push the prospect away. And you offer this super vanilla corporate speak call to action that they're getting bombarded with and nobody's going to respond to. Here's what you have to do. The Goldilocks principle is the just right. Remember Goldilocks? Big Papa's porridge was too hot. Mama's porridge was too cold, and the little bear's porridge was just right. You got to do the just right approach, okay? And you have to treat the prospects just right. And here's how you do it. You assume that they are a 5-star prospect out of the gate until they disqualify themselves. And this is what I want you to pay attention to. Look back at the 3-second rule and how you would send a 9-word email, or the Lazarus lead method, how you would send a 9-word email. The mindset there is you are assuming if they are a 5-star prospect that they are truly active and motivated to buy or sell, and treat them as such. Look, if somebody's looking to buy a home right now or list a home right now in the next week, do they need a 3-paragraph email from you, or do they need to hear from you, what time do you want to meet for a listing appointment? I'm just throwing that out there as kind of a comparison. Do you see what I'm saying? One of the biggest mistakes that agents make is you actually don't treat prospects like they're active, strong intent, high probability prospects. It's almost like you're afraid of success and you can't believe that they would actually be freaking looking to buy a home or sell a home. So treat them in a conversational, human-to-human way where it's not too much over the top. You're not telling them how amazing you are and sending these 2-3 paragraph emails and asking them to call you and all these different things. Neither are you taking the other route, which is the dark side of automation, and putting them on some automated property drip based off of their lead opt-in information, the data that you got. And you're watching them open these leads and click on them, but then you're watching them close with another agent. Okay? See, that's too cold. You want it just right. Send them real human emails, talk to them like a real human being, understand that 50 out of 100 are a complete waste of time. 35 out of 100 will close in 18 months. 15 out of 100 people will do something right now. And talk to all of them like they will do something right now until they qualify or disqualify themselves. The ones who will do something right now will love you and appreciate you for talking like a real human, offering them cookie crumb funnel conversion mechanisms that make it feel natural and effortless. Okay? And the ones who don't want to do who are not doing anything right now, but later will say, wow, you guys have a really great service with the open line, or with the buyer's tours, or the seller open line, or whatever it may be. We're just not planning to do it right now. Could you can you follow up with us in a little while later? That's just too much right now. Perfect. Now you have one of the 35 people. Okay. And in another webinar, we'll talk about 18-month conversion funnels. And 50% of the people will say screw you, and they'll unsubscribe and tell you to never follow up with them. And if I were you, I would thank them very kindly in your own head that they've disqualified themselves so you didn't have to waste your time. Because one of the biggest traps that agents fall into is wasting too much time on dead leads. Okay? Tire kickers, deadbeat leads who are not going to do anything. You want to spend 90% of your time on conversations and engagements, conversations being phone conversations or email conversations, engaging with people in a real way, in a real human way. All right, well, I'm out of time here. So real quick close. I'm going to tell you the 3 webinars that we're going to do over the next 3 weeks so you can know about them. If you guys want more information about us, if you want to know more about our platform and our products and what we offer, go to visit www.proquesttechnologies.com/demo. Okay, and what you can do there is you will opt in for what you can do is you can opt in. You can opt in for a demo webinar that Gary and I are going to be doing tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. PST. Opt in for that. just like you opted in for this webinar. And then what we'll do is we'll do a call tomorrow, a live call tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, where Gary and I will do a live demo of the tool that we offer and some of the things that we find are working really well out there in the marketplace, which exactly was what Gary references, that there's mechanisms and funnels in place where you can actually have a 30% throwaway rate, not a 50% throwaway rate or higher. We'll be talking about that tomorrow, okay? So if you like what you heard so far, again, we're not an email marketing company, but we're very passionate about helping agents succeed, and we're willing to always share our best practices and our best information with you guys. Sometimes it feels like most of the companies are out there to thin the herd. Our job, the way we see it, is to make our herd fat with commission checks and with prosperity, okay? So come to ProQuestTechnologies.com/demo, opt in if you want a demo, and tomorrow, Gary and I will be doing a live demo of that. Upcoming webinar schedule. Upcoming webinar schedule is we are doing on February 13th. On February 13th, we are doing the next Thursday, we are doing USP Bootcamp, how to create a unique selling proposition that cuts through the clutter like a diamond-tipped saw blade. One of the biggest, worst mistakes that agents make, bar none, is having the most boring, vanilla, me too, just like everybody else, value proposition or call to action. Okay, so next Thursday we're going to spend a whole hour just ripping this one topic apart, and Gary and I are going to give you guys an exact formula you can follow for creating USPs and testing them until you find one that just nails and converts well for you. February 20th, the Thursday after that, we're going to do guerrilla marketing for agents, high leverage, low cost marketing strategies for agents. Okay, getting out there and getting the most bang for your buck. Okay, when you've only got, guerrilla marketing strategies, that's obviously self-explanatory. And then February 27th is going to be our first hot seat call, where Gary and I are going to come up with a strategy for doubling an agent's business in 90 days live. We're going to pick an agent, get on the phone. It's going to be a live conversation, and we're just going to talk about, okay, how can we double your business in 90 days? One of the biggest mistakes that we find agents make and business entrepreneurs make in general is that they ask really weak questions. How can I grow this by 5%? How can I get this conversion rate better? Here's my question for you. If your family or loved ones were kidnapped today and you were sent a videotape with them being blindfolded with a gun to their head, and you were told that if you didn't double your business in 90 days, they were going to die, the law enforcement couldn't help. In this bizarre scenario, the only thing you could do to save your loved ones or family is to double your business in 90 days. My personal belief is that 98% of agents would find a way to double their business in 90 days. Okay? The problem is that you just are asking weak questions and you're not hustling enough, okay, with the right strategies. So February 27th, Gary and I are going to look at are going to ask the best question I think any agent can ask is, how do I double my business in 90 days? If it was a do or die situation, how the heck could I do it? And then go out and do it. And we'll just look at strategies and share them step by step. And with that, and we'll just be emailing these out to you guys, so just look for these invites. With that, live Q&A. So if you've got any questions, go ahead and type them in. Randy says, can you show the 9-word email slide again? I believe I did that earlier. Jane asks, what are your thoughts on every door direct mail? I think it's fantastic and awesome. Actually, in another webinar we did earlier last year on micro farming, I talked a lot about that. I think it's a great tool. By the way, for those of you who have been patiently waiting for the microfarming toolkit, I just saw pretty much all final proofs of it last night. Guys, we may be able to send it out to you all as soon as this week, so we're almost there. We did some tweaks. We're making some changes to make sure that it was going to be perfect and spot on for you guys. So if you've been waiting for that, great news, you're about to get it. Nancy says, I would like to make those webinars, but I will be traveling. Are you going to make them available? We will try to do our best to make them available once we've got the website set up to do that. Gary, what are your thoughts on this, everything we've talked about today? I mean, now that whoever wants to hang out can continue hanging out, so, and as they're asking questions, I'll let you know, but what are your overall, summary thoughts on everything that we've talked about today, in terms of sharing as advice for agents?
Overall summary really is when the recording comes out, listen to it 2 or 3 times. I think you were just nailing it all throughout the presentation. I think so much of it is there's so much similarity between what we're teaching in the how to engage in live dialogue versus what you're talking about here. They're conceptually parallel or very similar. And so really best advice, just when the recording comes out, listen to it 2 or 3 times and really focus in on the fundamental elements that Andre's drawing out here. And I'm sure everybody at this point can understand why we're so excited to have Andre as part of the team. He really knows his stuff when it comes to every facet of marketing, not just email marketing, but really across a broad spectrum, and especially so as it applies to you guys as agents, because he was obviously a practicing agent for a good long period of time and has been very successful with these approaches in his practice. So really, I don't think there's anything for me to add to this. It's just listen to it 2 or 3 times and really absorb these ideas and take them out and put them to work, because they do work. I know from personal experience in our efforts of email marketing and different things like that, these concepts you're talking about, again, they're based off of fundamentals of human nature. We got to treat prospects out in the marketplace like human beings,
Right.
not like a lead in your database. Okay, we've got to take high tech and bridge the gap into that personalized experience, and that's what you're advocating, and that's what you're teaching here in some very sound fundamental strategies. So really, no, nothing to add other than just listen to it 2 or 3 times and really drill down and put these ideas to work.
Awesome. A couple of people have chimed in here. So there was a question in here that I saw a minute ago. Oh yeah, what do you write in the love letter? I think maybe I don't know if I communicated that right. You don't write the love letter. What happens after 3, 4, 5 sorting questions where it's really natural and human based? You will get the love letter from them. What I'm saying is that a percentage of leads will just end up just suddenly dumping a whole paragraph on you of what they're planning to do or why they're buying or selling, whatever it may be. And that's when you then very naturally offer them a plate of cookies. One of your 3 calls to action that's, hey, I baked these really delicious cookies for you. Or offer them all 3 and say, well, depending on what you want chocolate chip, peanut butter, or macadamia nut. You know what I mean? You offer them 3 different kinds of cookies. But you don't write the love letter.
For the love letter, the metaphor for the love letter, Andre, is that threshold moment in a conversation with a prospect where they really start to open up to you. It's a parallel. You're using these 9-word emails to engage and develop deeper levels of engagement, and then it hits a threshold moment where they feel like they can tell you more.
Right.
And it's the same thing in a live conversation, either over the phone or face-to-face or via these email. This is real conversation occurring via email. One of the things that's always been a little bit of a rub in a lot of the promotions about social media and a lot of the different things, and I'm so happy you're going to be tackling these subjects, because you're just brilliant at this stuff when it comes to the social media platforms and the proper ways of engagement. So much of it's been, the pounding of the drum for the last 3-4 years. You've got to join the conversation, they constantly say, about the online social media environment, and the reality is the way agents approach it, it's not like they're joining the conversation. It's like they're running around the party handing out business cards saying, do you know anybody that wants to buy or sell real estate? That's not how you go to a social event. This is how you engage and have a conversation, the way you're teaching them in these 9-word emails. So again, I don't want to go on too much more about that, but this process you're teaching is about how to treat prospects in the marketplace who haven't stepped forward far, like you said, in the dark. Love the metaphor of in the dark, and they're coming out. It's a real way of actually creating a real conversation, not the sort of trumped up conversation that's been talked about for 2 or 3 years about social media. This is real human interaction the way you're describing it, and if modeled, it'll produce outstanding results.
Well, it's like Dan Kennedy likes to say in his hierarchy, is that tactics change constantly. Technology changes a lot. Strategies change sometimes. Principles never change, right? So what we're talking about here is that this is just the principle is that you can't have a business deal go down. You can't have a relationship until there's conversation and connection. The strategy is to focus on, building rapport, creating connection, figuring out what their pains and needs are, and being there for them. The technology delivery is the difference, is the application, right? I'm talking about email. A lot of our training up to date has been about the phone. But the bottom line is the
Right.
principles don't change.
Exactly.
Randy says that would be awesome. About how do we ask for the microfarming tool? We'll be blasting that out to all of you guys. Thursday are not good for me. Wednesday would be better. One agent says, unfortunately, we're just going to be doing our webinars on Thursdays. That's the schedule we can commit to. We've got a lot of busy people here, so if you can't make those, well, we'll put up recordings, but that's the schedule. Thank you so much for the webinar. It's extremely educational. You're welcome. Another question here. On other webinars, I found it took you I'll keep the name anonymous, but it says, on other webinars, I found it took too long for you to get to the meat of the webinar. I really appreciate all the info and that you hit the ground running with solid content. Thank you. Well, you're welcome. I came in late. Do these emails work best for truly a Zillow leads, or can they work for any lead you have? A human's a human. A human is a human is a human is a human. If you're dealing with aliens, my emails probably won't work. But if you're dealing with humans, they probably will work. So it's universal. I'm just explaining a framework to you guys. You can tweak the nuances yourself. Can the slides be emailed out? Yeah, we'll email those out with the webinar replay. Sure hope you can get this recording out ASAP. We'll do our best, guys. We'll do our best to put it into a video format, put it up on a web page so you don't have to opt in for it again, and then just send you the link. Good stuff. All right, guys. Well, it's 11:30 my time. I've got to get ready for the mastermind we're hosting with some agents here in a bit. Gary, any last thoughts you want to chime in here as we sign off?
Nope, not really. I think you covered it all, Andre. Nice job today.
Perfect. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, it was great hanging out with you. Hope you've learned bunches. Again, take these things and run with them. Ralph really quickly says, where do we sign up to learn all this stuff? Stay on our email list and make sure you open every freaking email I ever send you. Look for Andre Holston or Gary Elwood from ProQuest Technologies, and you make that 3-second decision to open every email that we ever send when we send it to you. And you'll hear about all of our upcoming trainings. Expect a webinar from us every Thursday. Every once in a while we might have to miss one, but typically we're going to do our best to give you guys something solid once a week. Thursdays, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So come out, hang out with us. Just put that on your calendar, honestly, and just kind of reserve that slot and know that we're typically going to always show up with a training for you guys on Thursdays. And we'll usually email out on a Tuesday about the upcoming Thursday training to let you know what it will be about, and to confirm whether you're going to get one or not that week. Okay? All right, guys, it's been real. Take care. We'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.